Welcome to the Blackout Show, presented by the Guillen Grid, a show about the Chicago White Sox baseball, the good, the bad, the ugly. We'll debate what's working and what's not on the south side of Chicago. It's old school versus new school baseball. And most importantly, we're keeping all the receipts.
Yo, what is up, everybody? With me tonight, Jay, OJ, and first time of the show, Nick Murawski of Good Guys Talk Back podcast. Nick is in the sandbox with us when it comes to the White Sox content and the cesspool. Nick, welcome to the show, and please tell us how San Diego was.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, man, San Diego, I've been there a couple times. I mean, city in general, it's a top city of mine. Boy, beautiful city. Took my little guy and my wife, he's 4 years old. So we went to San Diego Zoo. We did a lot of that kind of stuff. And we were staying kind of right in the gas lamp area. So we were walkable to the ballpark. And I have, this was my 19th ballpark seeing the Sox on the road. And I've heard, all the stories about Petco. It's up there with PNC. This is everybody's top ballpark. And I think it's 20 to 25 years old, if I heard that right. It's not a young ballpark. And boy, it's a really, man, sensory overload. There's a lot going on. There's stuff happening, every corner. I really like the fan experience. It has a bit of that north side Gallagher Way thing where you can sit out on like some AstroTurf on a hill. There's a huge stage and big screen where fans can just hang out with a picnic blanket and chill and just watch the game. You can still kind of see into the stadium from there, but TVs everywhere. Talking about sandbox, there's literally a sandbox out there for kids to just hang out and play while the game's going on. Good food. Really, we were no threat. Sox fans are no threat to them. They had an upcoming, the Giants they had a game against the Giants coming up. Dodgers is obviously the thing that everybody's concerned about. I really enjoyed the ballpark. It wasn't my favorite ballpark, but super fun. I mean, we had upper deck seats along the third base line. I thought I had a great vantage point and really cool to look out and see what essentially they've built around the ballpark. That's the way these ballparks are happening right now. They're right in the city, and you got these high rises and these apartments, if they're not established already, that are kind of being built around. And you could see cranes up everywhere. There's a lot of construction, and from what I understand, it's come a long way from when it first opened up. But how about what the Sox did, though? I mean, punched him in the mouth on Friday. We're not afraid to go into a stadium like San Diego, like Petco, against a team that's they might have been 7 or 8 over 500. A built team. That team's built for October. And the Sox came in, and I had to pinch myself. I couldn't believe it. I was hoping for maybe one win during the series, and that was answered quickly on Friday with the power and with Schultz just shoving, and he's gotten better and better with every start, more comfortable, more confident. He's getting himself into jams, but he's getting out of those jams. And then on Saturday, I love that win. It's not very popular, but the way they won with the bunting and the squeeze and some great pitching, It was scary at the end. It was extremely scary. And they love Gavin Sheets, by the way, in San Diego. They have this holy Sheets chant going on when he was up with the bases loaded and the game on the line. And I couldn't believe they were doing this for Gavin Sheets, but hey, they've come around to him. I think he's found a home there, but San Diego was awesome to get out of there with 2 wins. Should have been really 3. Sunday was a fluke. That chopper that hit. I so happy with that, the way they played. They really demonstrated something, and I love the city of San Diego. It was great to check Petco off.
I was out there the last 4 years, and I wanted to go to Petco, but every single time the White Sox were in town, it was September, and unfortunately, they were out of the playoff picture. So by that point in the season, I was disgusted to even go.
Yeah, sure.
Watch them, unfortunately, but I will go back and visit not only some of my coworkers from the last, when I was out there, but to watch a Sox game when they're actually relevant. But I'm glad you and your family had a great time. If I would have known that, I would have gave you some recommendations on places to see in the gas lamp area. But I do have a question for you. With the news that came this season with Ozzie Sr. and the retirement in August, I want to know, what does Ozzie Guillen mean to you as a Sox fan?
Man, he's White Sox baseball. I mean, it's Ozzie Guillen equals White Sox baseball. I've said it to Junior, before when we've talked, and he's been nice enough to come on Good Guys Talk Back. And I sent him, just a message when the news came down on the home opener. So happy for, the family, your whole family. And it's a long time coming. I've been asking the question, anytime Chuck and Ozzie have opened up, hey, send us your questions, whatever. I've been pumping that inbox with, when are we going to see number 13 retired? When's that going to happen? And I understand there's probably been conversations, and its timing is everything. It had to happen. It is not it's not a family of retired numbers without number 13. And it just, I mean, when I'm watching that game in the stadium, and the news came on the Jumbotron, and I was with my buddy Pat, and we just kind of like looked, and you could see it in each other's eyes, because we grew up with Ozzie. I mean, we grew up with Robin and Frank and Ozzie and Blackjack. We call our podcast Good Guys Wear Black because of Good Guys Talk Back because of Good Guys Wear Black. When they transitioned to that silver and black, that attitude, Ozzie, Fisk, he was still Bo for a short period of time, Tim Raines. So for Ozzie to finally get this, and everything he's done as a player, as a manager, just as an ambassador of the White Sox organization, me personally, and hopefully I can speak for just so many other White Sox fans, it means the world. Long time coming. Got my tickets already. I cannot wait to be there.
That's awesome. I'm not going to lie to you, Nick. That's going to be a situation to where there shouldn't be an empty seat in the house.
Yeah.
And it's, as a White Sox fan who also plans to go that night, that's going to be an all-day thing.
Mm-hmm.
All day.
Yeah.
Well,
they sold out the game, so I hope they sell out that one.
Yeah.
Now, Nick, I don't really, this is your first time on, and I'm still gauging you. I've seen some stuff that you've put out there on Twitter, but we're going to get into some White Sox talk now, and I want to know your opinion on, I'm sure this season they're playing right now above expectations to where you thought they are or were going to be. With the trade deadline a couple months away now, has things changed your opinion on, do you believe they're going to be buyers or sellers? And also I want to know, a caveat to this is there anyone right now at the major league level that you think is a part of their core, but you wouldn't be surprised if they get moved this season?
Yeah, things have definitely changed in my mind with where we're at here, May 5th. It's still incredibly early. I mean, we haven't even touched the division. I put something out there on X. I made a post about, 10 years ago, 2016, we came out of the gate. We were 23-10 at one point before things started to unravel. But early May, they were 19-10. No one expected that team to come out of the gates like that. You had Rodon in the rotation, Quintana, Sale. You had a Matt Latos that like started 4-0 with a goofy ERA. It was like kind of an accidental 4-0. And you had a John Danks that was on his way out. And he was eventually let go, as was Latos. And then that was the whole Tatis Jr. and we bring in Shields. And eventually by like mid-June, they had gone under 500 and they got back to reality. And then we know what happened after that season with, the direction that they went. I thought the offense was going to be there with this team just from spring training and just also carrying those vibes from last season, the second half and what Montgomery was doing. And, and I didn't think the pitching was going to be there. I really didn't. I'll be honest with you. I was like, this starting rotation, even with Shane Smith in his second year, and here they're doing all this without Shane Smith. Isn't that insane? So the pitching has really come along. The numbers show it. You saw Davis Martin start yesterday in Anaheim, and wow. I mean, that dude is feeling it. He has got his confidence going. And, I mentioned about Schultz. So I kind of want to see what they're going to do against the division. The question like that I think we can toss around, that I'm tossing around in my mind, is if you're going to be buyers, what are you buying for? Are you buying just for, just to get in as a wild card team? Are you buying because you just want to make it to the postseason? And what is that worth to you? I don't know if I want to give away much just to get a sniff at the playoffs, even though we haven't had a lot of playoff experience, and next season looks like it could be very well in jeopardy. So you want to kind of strike when you have this momentum going. But a guy like you asked about a guy who I thought was going to be in the core that I'm questioning of what's going to happen with this guy is Edgar Caro. I was really high on him when Teal went down with an injury. I thought that this was Caro's time to really step up, show what he can do. He's going to get a ton of playing time. I loved everything that I read, his time at Driveline, the work he put in with his mechanics. He's got a cannon for an arm. A smart guy that obviously knows the strike zone is his use with the ABS. But I have been just underwhelmed by what he's done this year. And, with the way Romo's playing and Teal, coming back hopefully within this month, Caro could be a guy. They've got depth at catcher. I could see Caro being a guy that maybe doesn't make it in a White Sox uniform past this season.
And I was just gonna say, I literally despise Gonzo because before the snow thawed this winter, he's talking about we got Kyle Till, strike while the iron's hot, like you said, deal Cuero, get that value back. I'm like, no, you gotta wait. You don't really need to give him up. And then Drew Romo comes around and completely eclipses him. And now I got to stop replying to Gonzo's text message about a trade.
Yeah.
So
life comes at you fast.
Yeah.
I'm actually glad you brought up the tweet because I totally forgot about that you posted earlier, and I'm glad you put the clarity out there in the cesspool because we're only a month into the season and everyone's going crazy right now, talking playoffs and not crowning this organization as contenders already. And I'm like, listen, you guys do you already forget that we lost 3 straight 100+ seasons? We haven't had a full season of playing 500 baseball at all. Like, I was kind of
bases loaded, nobody out, by the way, with reach.
I've been mind blown I understand like where the excitement is, don't get me wrong. And I just hope the fan base can not only get back to enjoying competitive baseball, but let's just like slow the horse down a little bit.
Yeah.
But I want to get to, because I'm bringing this up for a reason, because I remember OJ, I think it was last episode actually, was talking about let's go in, and I'll let OJ speak on his thoughts because I want to hear other way. I want to hear that guy's stance of this because I'm totally with you on this, Nick. and I want to hear OJ's perspective of how he sees it.
No, so this is the interesting part. This is where I'm not Chris Getz, but this is the danger of when you're a team of how do you wake up and how do you feel that day? Okay, because if your team is struggling and you're in a rebuild, you're really not forced in the excitement of like, I need to make a move. So last week, Nick, I said that bring Jordan Alvarez, send some prospects to Houston, get them no matter what. Okay, that's an extreme. Okay, yeah. That's where I was at last week of the excitement. But Gonzo, when you look at the calendar, and Nick just made a perfect example of it's really early and the team's been here in the past. Okay. And if you learn from the mistake of historically, they thought that they had a better team. They went and made moves where prospects were traded for big game James Shields, and they never really bounced back from that. I'm not saying that was the move that kind of, destroyed the future of the White Sox, but it was a move that they never bounced back from. Okay, so they were a little bit premature in pulling the trigger on that one. Okay, so I think that making a move for like a big name player, like a Jordan Alvarez or somebody of that caliber, like a blockbuster trade, is very premature because you're not there yet. You haven't been, you're not leading the division by 10 games. You're not getting playoff ready. And that move can cost you, again, having a better team consistently in the future. But I am open because the only reason that this Carroll trade now makes, again, it's even more realistic is because Romo's playing amazing. We were just talking earlier before the show, my guy Acuna not having a choice other than being sent down, and you have to gamble if he gets picked up by somebody because there's another player that's coming up because you're winning baseball games. So I don't want to see Gonzo. I don't want to see a blockbuster trade because it is premature, again, in the development of players coming in. And I think that if you make a blockbuster trade, that's going to come with a price tag, not only giving up prospects, but also a price tag of a salary. And it could be a little bit premature rather than, I'm not saying save money, but hold it off to see what position you're really going to need in the future once you kind of have a better assessment of the team and the core that you have. I would, even if they don't make, I'm going to be honest, if the White Sox play 500 ball and we're here in September and they're finishing above 500 or 500 ball, I would consider this emotionally and personally a playoff run just because of how far they were and how much they've overcome from the previous seasons. So if they finish 500 or above, I think Will Venable needs to compete for manager of the year at that point, because they were so far behind. I think that they're now way ahead, meaning the way they've played these 2 months. But I'm not thinking, oh, we're going to be a wild card team. Just because a wild card, people get excited. I don't think people realize how hard it is to win the wild card because so many teams are competing. But again, my goal is stay in the hunt for the division, play baseball where it's competitive. You can sneak yourself in and these guys get to develop. Again, White Sox fans come to the stadium when the team wins. These guys are playing in August, early September in packed houses. What that's going to do to our development and excitement is only going to be positive. So if they can get in and sneak in, it's like, oh my God, we got in. Awesome. With the current roster, I don't want them to have to go get a major piece to get in just to get a quick first round exit. And I'd rather just be like, let's see what we go with and not move anybody that's a blockbuster trade. If it's somebody like Hero or somebody that isn't not going to have value in the team later on because there's too many position players and it's going to bring something in return, I'm open for that. But no, this week, no Jordan Alvarez. Next week, I might want a trade for Juan Soto. I don't know.
You're crazy.
So I don't see, just because of how the season has gone with Cuero, I don't see his value being there with where it was before the season started. In fact, I'm at that point where, if I remember right, he still has options. So I could see him being a project like Jay loves bringing, sending guys down and allowing them to work on their game instead of at the major league level.
Oh my God, are you serious?
But when Teal comes back, I can see that happening where you have Romo as the backup for now and then wait until Cuero can, get his confidence back and bring him back up.
Shane Smith didn't deserve that stray, by the way. You're bogus.
So, hey, but we'll get to Shane Smith in a second. I'm actually believing that I might be out there with this, but it's just because of where my mind is at and how things are structured right now. But my surprise would be Vargas, which we've talked about in the last 2 episodes, actually. And then another guy is Davis Martin. And we're going to talk about the pitching staff coming up here. I know Ozzy doesn't like that because of him meeting Davis not too long ago and hearing this kid's
I liked them before.
IQ.
But now I liked them before.
Mm-hmm.
He's got MLB makeup for mentally and what we've seen physically. So pick somebody else on the list. Why Davis obviously doesn't have the most value. Again, if it's Noah Schultz, though, Gaza's gonna like this. If it's Noah Schultz type of whoever's in the minor leagues, then I would be open-minded, because Noah Schultz, for all the doubters, I thought that this San Diego game was going to be a big tester for him. Because I thought, obviously, because of the lineup, not playing at home, kind of like one of his biggest starts, obviously, since he's been here, and he shoved. He made him look uncomfortable. He made it look. There was an inning where he had like bases loaded, and I love when guys do that. He wasn't showing up the other team, but he kind of did he was like, oh, I got the out, and he showed some emotions. I was like, okay, this kid, his stuff's nasty, but I think that he's developing a lot quicker than I thought that he would. So if there's more Noah Schultz in the minor leagues, Gonzo, I will be all for them.
And that's the thing. I think you can even package for a desperate contender. You could probably package Vargas and Martin together, combine that value, and get something of better value back in return, which can really help this team if that is a position player, or if that value is equivalent to a Noah Schultz in the rotation that can pair up with him.
So Gonzo, I just want to ask you. So when if I'm sending Miguel Vargas and Davis Martin in the same trade, can I get 2 top 10s back for him?
You have MLB ready guys with the top 10, I think.
That's a haul, Jack.
Every front office, ranks these prospects differently. So like a guy that, like, you might think is a top 15 guy, I might have him as a top 5 guy in that organization.
Right.
Yeah. It's like when you don't call, Houston calls you, hang up. And if they ask you about a player that you didn't have in your top 5, top 10 guys, think in your mind, why are they asking for this player? There's certain teams that when they call, I would not pick up the phone, and I would only pick up just to see who they're requesting, because it's going to be different than what your list is. Again, depending on how they're looking at it, analytical or whatnot. But I think it's interesting. I'm going to be Gonzo. I know that there was a crazy tweet earlier about that person that I don't know who's his insider. I think it's a hot dog guy. Saying that every called for Murakami. Why wouldn't they call? Every team calls for every player. I've watched games with general managers when the team is losing and he's offered the whole roster. Okay, that happens. GMs can be like, it's like fantasy baseball. You're just throwing stuff out there to see. Okay, it happens. And if Murakami is the top player right now, of course they're going to see and try to see if they're going to catch Getz and the White Sox sleeping and they make a bad move. So you got to ask a team to make a bad move. So of course Murakami is being called upon, just like every other player on the Sox. But that being said, you need to be thinking about, when I make this move, short term, obviously, but then also long term. This is what we're talking about, this playoff run. Yeah. Because if it's going to bring you back, because let's say a team, let's pay Davis, or again, they're both really good on both sides. Let's say a team really is desperately in need of that kind of like a pitcher and a position player. And they're going to return you a prospect that's almost major league ready, that's in a position that you're in deficit for. So right now, like, for example, that guy cannot be a shortstop. Why? We have many shortstops and many shortstops in the pipeline. Our first round pick is most likely going to be a shortstop. But they give you a right fielder, an elite guy that's a natural right fielder that we haven't had in a long, long time. Then you have to consider it. But I want Chris Getz. I hope that he's out there having these conversations, because, again, this is, I think, what also improves in his skill set of negotiating and kind of playing general manager and seeing what's out there in the White Sox front office. Because, again, this is probably the first year that they're going to get calls for talent.
Yeah.
100 game losing season. No one's taking calls from any team of being like, I am not taking your, whatever you're dumping. So this gives them also experience. Again, this front office, the team is young. The front office hasn't, we're not in the, 19 year tenures that Kenny had when he had in Rick. they were very experienced. They had been through winning seasons, losing seasons. Even though Guess has been in the organization for a long time, has not been in the position of leadership for a long time. So this is an opportunity for him to kind of get his feet wet and kind of be able to make. So I'm hoping that he's doing everything that he can to look at every possible option on how to make this roster better and for the future.
And that's important. I was going to say, Nick, before you get going, that's an important aspect of this, is because I really hope that Getz gets better at, and I know this falls also on the major league scouts of this team, but making that assessment of your talent before the other organizations are able to. That way, you know where to game plan your core around. Because last September, I was saying, let's call up Peyton Pillette. Let's call up some of these guys that are about to be Rule 5 eligible guys to get the assessment of. That way, we actually can decide that before. And I know Cleveland picked him up. He had a couple of great innings, and then he kind of collapsed. But the fact that we didn't make that assessment of him at the major league level before we let him go, I thought, and it wasn't just him, but it's a couple other guys of that caliber that I'm like, I understand at the end of the day, these are like bottom roster of your active roster guys, but it's important going forward that you make that assessment not only of them, but of others as well. Especially last show I put out there, I thought out of your organization right now, the biggest question is Billy Carlson's development right now, making his debut this season, because we all know that, yes, he probably does have the best glove in this organization at shortstop, but he was at number 10 in that class because of the questions of that hitting profile. And if he truly does, like, if you see this season struggle with the bat, for me, I might move that value of that kid, knowing that we're drafting Rock to play shortstop if that bat struggles. However, which is kind of against the case right now because the bat is looking good. If the bat looks good, I'm keeping that kid, and that kid's going to be my starting shortstop for this core. And then we can move Rock, who's an above average defender, to third base or anywhere else in the diamond that is of need. So again, got to make that assessment of your own to move guys that don't fit your picture. And again, just to put more emphasis on this, you've seen top organizations like the Milwaukee Brewers do this in real time as contenders year in, year out. They did it 2 years ago with Corbin Burns, and then they did it this offseason with Freddie Peralta. And again, they just keep rotating guys in and out, layering the system, and again, they're contending. So this is something that you have to get used to doing. But go ahead, Nick. I'll let you.
No, you guys hit on some great points. I was going to say, Getz hasn't done anything quite like this. This is going to be a critical period of time for Chris Getz in the front office. And all of the other GMs in baseball know that too about Chris Getz. They know that he hasn't been in this situation before. And they know how, it would look if, hey, the Sox could get into the postseason when nobody had them even close to that, how that would look to Chris Getz. So he is going to have to be very careful. But to your point, Gonzo, you have to be also rock solid on what is our mission. What's our philosophy right now as a team? How do we view these guys that we have? What are we willing to risk, moving forward at the deadline, so to speak? And you also have to be so good on your talent, on what you have. You need to be talking to everybody that's had eyes on guys in the organization. And how do we feel about this guy? Where do we think this guy is going to play? What do we like about this guy? What do we don't like about this guy? Because we have opportunities maybe to bring in an arm or bring in a bat. And if we don't think that this guy is going to help us out down the road because of a lot of other factors, then you have to trust, right? Trust the people that you've been speaking with, and then you just have to go all in and move forward.
I just want to say before we leave this topic, I don't think the Miami Marlins did a proper assessment of their talent when they did the Trevor Rogers, Connor Norby trade, because Miami was building through their rotation and through their bullpen. Pitching was the lab in Miami, and they shipped off somebody who could very well be the most productive pitcher in the rotation for a guy in Connor Norby, who is a third baseman who's platooning at first in the outfield with Christopher Morel of all people. So not only did they lose the trade, there's no way they could get a return on their investment unless Norby wins an MVP out of nowhere, or Trevor Rogers catastrophically has a 7 ERA for the Orioles, which won't happen. It won't
actually disagree with that. But
How?
Because the Miami Marlins need a lot of position players, and what they're very good at is developing pitching, which there's still guys in their system that are coming up that will be filling in those spots.
Who don't wear shirts? Who don't wear shirts when they practice in the minor leagues?
No, I get that, Gonzo, but at the end of the day, what is Connor Norby doing for the Marlins right now? Like, they got him to be the third baseman of the future, and he's playing first base right now just to stay in the lineup.
Why are we talking about a dirt organization?
Yes. Moving on to the next topic.
Yeah, we were just talking about people not assessing their talent before they make a move.
Yes, that's why the Marlins, they should. So, again, since we're going to talk about organization, the San Francisco Giants right now are calling everybody up in their system to the big leagues. Okay. And everyone's like, oh, they're trying to they're just trying to see what they have before they bring the Tennessee team from college to their manager. Because that's how bad they're struggling. But that's what you have to do. And Nick made a great point of nobody can know your organization better than your own internal team. And I love the fact that you use the word mission. Okay. Mm-hmm. During the Kenny year, and I can only talk about the Ozzie and Kenny years, regardless if you like them or not, Kenny's mission was, we're going for it. Okay. We don't have prospects. Prospects are basically people that we trade. We go for veteran guys. We get people via trade, but this is our mission, and we're going to go for the division. I don't care what you think if it's good or bad, but they had a mission. I feel that when a front office doesn't have a mission, that's when disasters happen, because you're kind of just doing a little bit of everything. So whatever Chris and his front office decides what his mission is going to be, again, we'll assess that in the future if it's going to work or not. I want him to be solid on it. I hope that it's one of, and I think you guys might agree, of like, let's be a little bit more patient. Let's see what we have. Let's not jump in on the, blockbuster trades. But I hope the word mission, and that's probably that should be our slogan. What's the mission? And him and Will being attached at the hip, and the coaching staff in the front office and saying, like, what's our mission? And just being able to and again, Chris Gonzo, this is where not having someone like the former bald-headed dude that was here helps extremely, and the new coaching staff that's here, that I think has done a great job, because they're the ones that are telling the front office, this guy's developing, this guy's a fluke, we missed with this guy, because the coaches are also helping assess the scouts on like what the future going to looks like. That's why we got in trouble. The Sox got in so much trouble beforehand, because there was none of that from the manager standpoint and the coaching staff standpoint. So the gap was even bigger. So it's like blind leading the blind. So I think that Will in that end, I think he's actually really good at like the development of like that communication that he's having, because you can even see with his playing time. Like Pereira, for example, Luis Angel kind of getting less and less opportunities. That's communication of he's playing the guys that are developing better. And that's what you want to see. So love it, Nick. The word mission, regardless of what the mission is, the Sox need to have one.
Well said. We are going to transition to the pitching staff, which I know I mentioned Davis Martin and OJ. You bounced back at me a little bit, so this is why we're going to get into it now. I've got 3 tweets for you to go over with this topic. Let's just first start off with the overall pitching staff. And one of Slavko worked with them, but really great guy out there in the content world for the MLB right now. Lance, oh gosh, I'm gonna say this, but Brosdowski, maybe that is right. Am I close enough there, Nick?
I think so. Yeah, that's good.
That's one of the better ones all season, Gonzo. I'm not gonna lie. I appreciate that.
That's beautiful. So here's how your team's pitching staff is doing 20% of the way through the 2026 MLB season. I split up starters and relievers and went with xFIP as my guide, which FIP is one of the things I love, Jay, not ERA, because ERA has some factors that don't go that go against the pitcher on essentially what FIP does. FIP measures the pitcher's effectiveness and efficiency. So what stands out here, as you can tell, our boys and the good guys are bottom left of this pitching chart, which kind of does surprise me because we'll get into this in a second. But essentially, FIP kind of shows you at least that our starting pitching, as well as it has been, has had more so luck to it 20% into the season than we have anticipated. And then also it goes to show you how bad the bullpen is, which we already know that. But for me, I think it's more so that the pitching staff has been more lucky than not with our defense, which actually has been doing really well. If you look at Colson at short, Trishan Peters in left field, you got some guys around the diamond that have been above their defensively, have been above average and helping out the pitching staff, which again, the topic of the show is regression to the mean. And I think that our pitching staff will show that going forward. But a very good breakdown by Lance here. Moving over to...
I have a question on that. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm looking at this chart and I'm like, this is where a front office gets in trouble. Okay. Does the number include the team's defense?
No, because FIP is not.
Okay, so meaning if I made a bad pitch and I have a good defense, I get saved. Okay. The reason
ERA is the opposite of that. ERA would include the defense. Yeah.
Because I like to combine both. And Jay, I'm not gonna root as hard as I have. I'm gonna even root harder for this pitching staff to be amazing, just so that Gonzo's wrong. Philadelphia Phillies and the Mets are on the good at everything. They're not. One got their manager fired. The other one's on the hot seat. Where's the Boston Red Sox on here?
Come on, bro.
I'm just saying, like, look, Boston's like kind of better than the White Sox. So again, I like that you could say that they are getting lucky because you can keep that in the, in the conversation. But I need to look more at this 15 because I'm very surprised on how low the White Sox are in this category of stat. On the naked eye.
I love FIP because it goes to show you
correct. The naked eye.
Where the defense actually plays a factor. Because again, Jay knows this too. Everyone comes at me with, saying how bad Dylan Cease is, but I'm like, yeah, but if you actually compare what the effectiveness of that pitcher is, this is where FIP actually shows you
but this is the thing
of the pitcher
this is where the front office
the surrounding factors.
No, this is where the front office needs to big bucks because if they need to combine this with their scouting and whatnot, this tells me one thing just from like what we've covered, that the White Sox defense is working and they're pretty solid defensively and probably don't need as much improvement as they do on the pitching side.
Yep.
So this is a type of this is like where analytics needs to be combined and like looked at as a whole and not say, well, this team's good, this team's bad, just in a pure stat. So like if I would work in a front office and I'm digging deep into these numbers, it should be someone's mission to figure out, okay, why are our guys missing? And can we get them to improve so that the team improves? Because obviously if we improve our pitching a little bit better with our defense, we're just going to be that much better. So again, pitch effectiveness and all. This is where like a chart like that, and this is like when the both worlds come together, because I'm very surprised on how low they are on that stat because the way that they've been pitching to the naked eye, you're like, wow, they've been pitching amazing. They're pitching solid. We can move along and give everybody 10-year extensions, and that's not the case from this. Again, that's how you get in trouble giving people extensions because you didn't look at all the stats. You just look at 2 stats. So thank you for sharing that.
And then the second tweet, which comes from a Japanese account, again showing us the rotation up to this point. Obviously, goes to show you around the league, the lack of talk has been on Davis Martin with what he's been putting up in this season. But again, unfortunately, we do have K not having his best, production to this point. Hopefully he's able to turn that around. But again, he's kind of the outlier right now. And unfortunately for him, there's going to be a question coming soon on, if that spot's going to remain there or not, because you got Hagen Smith right now pitching really well in AAA, and he's just a call up around the corner. And not to mention, but again, I'm going to bring it up now. Fortunately, it's just one guy that is able to be a call away, because at a week ago I was thinking it was three. Sorry, three. I thought McDougal, Hagen Smith, and Shane Smith were going to come up eventually before the All-Star game, and unfortunately injuries are a thing, and McDougal is out for the season now, and Shane Smith is now dealing with an injury as well. So that's not good as far as the pitching staff goes for guys who I thought not only was going to be there, but was actually looking forward to seeing this season make their debuts as White Sox. So again, this brings me up to conversation, how many of these guys do you think actually pan out? Before we answer that, I want to bring up this topic again with Davis Martin, because not only am I going to bring it up, but someone who is a friend on the show and has been on multiple times put out there and got blasted for it. Elijah Evans. The Davis Martin breakout looks more real with every start. So fun to watch right now. ... This does lead to a tricky conversation come mid-season, though. 4.5 years of control for a pitcher thrown like this would command a legit haul at the deadline. And I mentioned regression to the mean, not because, again, this guy's thrown 6 pitches out there. The philosophy is great. He's doing a hell of a job mixing up those 6-pitch mix. However, as time goes on, the league's going to see it. The league's going to find something. And I just think naturally, again, I'm not saying dramatically those numbers will come all the way down. I think he probably should have, with how his routine is, with how he's throwing the ball with those mixing. I still think he's going to have a solid season. But again, where the value is right now, it's probably going to be its highest value for him with that control. You might get an offer that you just can't pass up. Now, that being said, and again, look at the rotation and the guys that you think will be there at the remaining of the season. How many guys come up? How do you think this will be? I'll let you guys go at.
So how many years of control does Burke have?
Let me look that up, because I only think.
So I'll start off with Eric Fate. I think that Eric's, if he keeps pitching well, you can always re-sign him. If you have a spot open or whatnot. Like, he's a veteran guy, meaning he's probably the oldest guy on that group, like experience wise. So he's going to be somebody that if he keeps pitching well, you can move contract friendly. I think it's like a 1-year deal that he has.
It was basically structured to flip him. So
yeah, so that would be like the first guy on the list that you flip. So the way that I look at it from and I don't know how many years of control they have left on Burke, but with the 4.5 years of control, if everybody pans out, Noah and the guys that are coming up, Davis is your 4th or 5th starter, like an average. You're not having a 5-headed monster in the pitching staff. So, even though won the World Series, the 5th starter, was Duque and McCarthy. They weren't as elite as the other guys. They were good. So you're never going to have 5 elite starters that are like top-notch, top guys. So I think that to move Martin with that many years of control is got to be something very, very sexy for the White Sox on a position that they need a lot of help in, or in order to move him. Because even with him going back, the way that I look at it, even with him going back, regressing, I think for this team to be competitive and being like, wow, we're a contender in multiple years of playoffs, unless obviously something happens and he makes a huge jump, he's not an ace type of stuff-wise. So I would love to see him if Davis Martin is your 4th and 5th starter, that's a really good rotation. That means that the 4 guys in front of him are really, really good. So that's where you have to see okay, is what I'm getting in return worth it, at least to me, because 4.5 years is a long time of control.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Nick, we were on the topic of all these gonzo metrics that he brings up to gauge these pitchers. Are there any specific metrics that you like when you got your eye on a guy and you say, oh, he's having a good year? What type of stat do you isolate?
That's a really good question, Jay. I think I kind of Frankenstein it. I respect and value the world we live in with the metrics. I mean, it's truly unbelievable the different numbers that you can put up on, offense, defense, and different situations. And then you've got your old school kind of RBI, batting average, ERA stuff that it still gets thrown at us, even though we've been told over the years that's really not what you should be looking at to measure a player. There's not a one, when it comes to a team though, I look at run differential. I do look at that in terms of like individual. It's kind of a hodgepodge, I don't look at one thing, but when it comes to where a team's at, I go with run differential just to see, is this something that they're going to be able to maybe sustain for a while? And I've used it quite a bit when teams have been like the White Sox right now, playing way above where they should be. And they're at like a minus 30 something run diff. And I'm like, I just don't know. Looking at the rest of the division or the rest of the league, I just don't see this team continuing to do it. Look at, just it's going to even out. Eventually things are going to catch up to them. And that has been something that has been true to form. I get lost in it. I really do. There's just a lot that I feel like every year, every season, like we're being introduced to some, and I'm not denying the value of it. I'm a little slow to come around to some of these new things to see, is this really, a value? Should I be really investing a lot of time and energy in this, or is this just a new fad way of looking at it? But it's a roundabout way of just saying, I kind of pick and choose, and sometimes I pick and choose things that prove my point. It's like, well, I'll take the stats that make my argument look kind of good. But I run diff though. I do watch that regularly.
Yeah.
So OJ, to answer your question, which there is actually a caveat to this topic in itself. They both have the same control. Both have 4.5 years. They're on their last year of pre-arb before they hit arbitration 1. Now, the caveat to this was Shane Burke is age 26 right now. Davis Martin is age 29 going into this ordeal.
Yeah.
So, again,
that you're again, this is the assessment that they have to do. So again, the years of control, and they got to know what they have in the minor league system and how ready they're going to be. Nick, I only assess big league players. That's why I have to give Gonzo his props, because I said I'm going to know how good Noah Schultz is when he gets to the big leagues.
Yeah,
okay,
I agree with you. Yeah.
And I love this. I love that you look at run differential, because you look at the standings, and that's the first thing I look at. That's why the Dodgers are the daddies of baseball. They got a plus 63, and Ohtani doesn't even hit when he pitches. So the Sox right now are still at a negative, but I look at run differential because I think it's like one of the best things to assess on how pitching and hitting is combined to get games to win. I think the last team to go to the playoffs with like a negative run differential was the Diamondbacks that 1 year. I think they were like -1. The Masters of going and winning divisions with negative run differential. The Guardians are always like in like the cusp of it, which again, I give more credit to the manager. And again, this is the great job that Will Venable has done, because I look at that too. Staff, when you have negative run differential and your record is somewhat of a positive, and you've been competing when you've lost 100 games the previous years. But that's a big stat. I like that stat a lot, at least for an overall team. But Gonzo, to your point, to be able to move him, that's on to a factor age, what you get in return, and if he's in the White Sox depth chart. And again, let's take into consideration next year, we don't know what's going to happen. So is that going to affect guys regressing? That's something that you have to take into consideration from an arbitration eligibility standpoint. Guys regressing, do you move him now because you can get that guy, that talent? You're going to have one more year of guys developing, because again, you might have a shortened season. This is what keeps up the front office at night. which is a good thing.
Just had what what we're saying is I got a text from Elijah just now, and again they're talking about this on the pregame show with your father, OJ.
And I can guarantee that he's saying you got to know what's coming up from the minor leagues, because again, the talent that Noah Schultz has, like stuff wise, like when you see him pitching in the minor leagues and you see stuff, movement, lefty, the angle, even the way he looks, you're like, wow, okay, this guy's a little different. These guys are more of like the more common pitchers, like, so you have to see effectiveness. So when you're assessing a kid in the minor leagues, you gotta see what you have and how they're going to develop into the big leagues.
Would you be able to get an eye on Hagen Smith before you could make that decision on Martin, hypothetically?
Bring him up.
I mean, you the way things are trending, I would think Smith would be up and get a handful of starts before the deadline, right?
Yeah, deadline is, if I remember right, it's after the All-Star break still.
Yeah,
so you can literally call Hagen up, let's just say last week of May, and you could probably get 5-6 starts out of him. And then again, you have a Shane Murphy that is also on his way to Charlotte. I think he just got promoted this week, actually. We talked about Christian Opor, who was the breakout pitcher last year in the system. If I remember right, he's in high A. He should be at double A at the end of this year. So again, I think he is a guy you can debut in next year. Again, I don't know how the 27 season's going to go with the lockout, but if we have baseball, I would imagine you would have, like a Bonham in the hitting side coming up. Christian Opor should be debuting next year. That's another lefty in this rotation. So there's the minors. I still favor the hitting side right now in this organization, the minors, but there's still some arms coming up that I look forward to seeing that should have a place in this core going forward. However, I would still like to see some value move to bring in some more competition in that rotation. That aren't just your like back end rotation guys. I want to see some guys that could be middle to top end guys coming in here. So,
and right now we're thinking Hagen's a starter, so he could be a guy that, if his arm's good enough and he's not a starter, usually they become good relievers. Again, or starters. Again, I don't want Michael Kopech 2.0.
Yeah,
Michael Kopech was supposed to be the next Cy Young, big name guy. I remember people were crying when he came out in the rainy day. He was supposed to be the next big thing. Didn't really pan out. So when you're assessing, again, trying to get them, the only time they've ever faced big league hitting has been spring training. So if you can get them in the mix of coming in, again, the development of pitchers, if you get a guy be really good the first year, that's a huge win. It usually takes 1 to 3 years for guys to get comfortable and kind of, be able to show what they got. But if that offer is good enough, they're going to have to consider it.
To your point, the major, flag against him right now is getting that third pitch developed. And again, when he gets to the major league level, we need to see him really have 3+ pitches in his arsenal, especially with not only where he was drafted in that class, but again, with the selections that were around him, he's going to have to not only play well, but he's going to have to make himself a name, because that was, again, that's his first pick as GM in a loaded class with guys that have already debuted and having success in the MLB. And I'm talking about Weatherholt and Connor Griffin. Those are position players, and you went with a pitcher with what at the time you felt comfortable selecting and developing. And again, I hate to say it because I don't want to put that pressure on that kid, and I want to see the best out of him. Again, we had a conversation on, pre-draft of that year, talking about the pitchers of that class with Chase Burns, Hagen Smith. Me and OJ went back with each other on those two. We both favored two different ones, but nevertheless, the talent is worth it at that selection. It's just getting him developed, getting him in the MLB, and him showing out, but precisely getting that third pitch, because at the moment through the system, he's had 2 pitches right now.
And Noah Schultz passed there's no analytics for this. It's called the tight booty.
What?
Yeah, they don't have in the minor leagues, AAA, you can't make up the big league atmosphere. So when you come out and you look at the stands, the size of the stadium, the noise of the fans, the media, some guys just they melt. That transition, everybody talks about stats, but the transition of the mental game from the minor leagues to big leagues is it's such a jump. Like Noah Schultz now, like I know that he's not mentally, he's prepared to pitch in the big leagues. He's not overwhelmed by the moment, and I told Gonzo that. Like until I see this kid in a big league uniform with the pressure and the media, hey Noah Schultz, how you feeling today? How you doing? Like there's guys that have been in the big leagues for 4 or 5 years that are still melting when they're on the mound. That you can tell.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I've thought about this over the years of, the gap in talent. It's like how big of the gap in talent was Noah Schultz to some of the guys he was facing, right? What I don't want to demean the talent that he was facing, but was it a challenge? Was he so much greater than some of the talent? Because then some of the numbers, and then it's tough for me to get a sense of, well, is this guy really good, or is he just so much better than the guys he's facing? So yeah, all respect to everybody that covers the minors, and there's some great ones that really do a lot of great work. I got to wait till I see him, in a White Sox uniform to see what he's going to be able to do at the big league level.
It's fair enough. Yeah, no, I try out of our crew. I really try hard to, again, pay attention to the minors because I know
all rookies is dangerous, Gonzo. Let's see what happened to Jay's team with the Red Sox.
I try to pay attention to the minors because, again, when we created this show, I understood where the organization was at the time when we started this. And that was, again, I think one of our first episodes was breaking down the Cease deal. And at that moment, that's when I knew we were going down the rebuild.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I shifted my mindset on not only being focused on the MLB, but I need to really start paying attention to the minors, not only our system, but the rest of the MLB, because that's where the bread and butter is when you go through a rebuild. And again, I found Elijah really early on into where he once was to where he is now. And people like Elijah. We brought on Nate Rasmussen, Doc Eisenhower, a lot of guys that are on the up and content creating in this game. And it's awesome not only seeing us, but seeing other content creators, not only, like you, Nick, that are out there with our content about the White Sox, but seeing other content creators just in baseball itself. So to wrap up this topic, I personally see this at least. Obviously, you see Noah here. I think one of the two of Martin and Burke, probably because of age. I think that they keep Burke, and if the value of Davis remains high, I can see him flipped just because of having that high value with that age right now. And then I don't see K or Fetty staying. If Fetty stays with this performance, I see him flipped. Otherwise, if it goes the other way, like K, I can see him DFA'd. And again, K might be DFA'd if it remains like that. So you can see, again, Hagen Smith coming up. So you've got Noah, Hagen, and one of these two. And then you can probably see Shane Murphy coming up as a 4. And then maybe perhaps later on in the year, you see them start to stretch out Grant Taylor at the end of the year to get those starts and to see if he can make it as a starter. Because again, talk about this conversation. If he's not a starter, you're flipping him as a closer because you need that value. Last topic before we get to the schedule. Nick, we haven't heard about your take on Murakami. And I love this topic or this tweet because I actually myself forgot about this. But again, if Murakami, beats out the other AL rookies, including McDougal himself, we also get a comp pick. So this brings up an interesting conversation. Nick, do you think if he wins the AL Rookie of the Year, Is he here? Is he somewhere else? I know this is only a 1 month that we've seen of Murakami and his hitting profile, but not only does Chris Getz need to make a decision, but again, our ownership of Ishbia and Jerry need to make a decision probably in the next month or so on, are we going to give him an extension at the end of the year, or if he remains like these stats right here are showing you, we can flip him at his highest value because it's only a 2-year deal. We can max out value and strengthen this core being put together.
Man, it's interesting. To put it in perspective, we are just on May 5th, and I'm shocked at what Murakami's been able to do offensively. I thought that it was going to be slow for him. I thought that April and May, he was going to be figuring out the league, getting his bearings and finding his moments and places. And then he was going to start to take off. And it seems like he's not missing a beat at all. We're so starved as a Sox fan base for like superstars, guys that live up to the hype. We've had a lot of players over the last decade that have been hyped up to us, but have not delivered. They just haven't, for a variety of different reasons. And, we talked at the beginning of this podcast, and no way, please, I am not putting Murakami in a Frank Thomas category. But when I was growing up, that was the dude. That was Frank Thomas came up to bat, and you had to stop what you were doing. He was Mr. Danger, Mr. Lightning, and Thunder, and the numbers are there to show you what he did in that stretch in the early 90s when he won back-to-back MVPs. It was sick. And that's where we are as a Sox fan base. We want, that's a callback to that, where a guy that just comes up, stop what you're doing, and anything can happen with this guy. Now there's like 3 real outcomes that could happen, right? It's a walk, a strikeout, or a home run. Although he peppered some balls around the field on Monday in Anaheim, which was nice to see. They're calling for the extensions right now, and they're calling for maybe those Ishbida capital infusions and make this guy be your first $100 million guy. And I'm okay with it not happening right now. I don't know if you look to flip, though. I don't know if you look to see if you can, get something in return. I want to see this guy here for not just 2 years. I really would like to see Murakami on the Sox with this core, with this young core. So it doesn't need to happen right now, but I hope and pray those conversations are being had. There's serious conversations being had about, like, honestly, what is our long-term plan? Okay. They might have thought something when they first signed him for a 2-year deal. They might have had different plans. And the way guys are gelling, the chemistry of this team, the way Venable is this team playing, and with Schultz, doing what he's doing, small sample size, I get it. But you might have to pivot. You might have to be flexible with what you thought originally you wanted out of Murakami and say, you know what, we need a guy. We need a superstar that we can build around. And I would, let's be patient a little bit longer, but I would look to try to extend. I really would. At least I hope that's the conversation.
I appreciate that. As a Sox fan, I appreciate that, Nick, because you got Gonzo right here trying to trade my boy after 4 weeks. Literally.
Again, and I think that everybody, when you're going to flip him, the other teams are going to say, well, I only have 2 months of sample size.
Mm-hmm.
You're not flipping an MVP, okay? If he wins the MVP, then his value is higher after the season. Like if he wins the Rookie of the Year, his value is higher after the season. I would like Murakami. I'm going old school baseball. He's on pace to go 130. Okay? How many White Sox 130 guys have they developed? How many 130 guys are developed in baseball? That's where if you can extend him, because he's going to get into that group of guys that if you do that, he is worth the money. But I think that right now you can have that conversation post the full season of him. And you try to make that guy as comfortable as, get him all the bidets that he wants. Meaning make him like Chicago, make him like Will, have a real honest conversation with his group of like, hey man, you like it here? What do we have to do to get you to stay here in Chicago and play? Obviously, the Japanese market, everybody knows how big it is. And because again, it's not just going to be Murakami, it's going to have to be Murakami and help. But if they found this diamond on the rough, because I think it's really hard to find a player if he stays the way that he's going consistently, meaning at the end, to just be able to find value in trade and say, oh, I got enough value for somebody. That's just my take. I think that the excitement that he brings, I think he brings people to the stands. I think that he's a guy that I don't think the Sox have been talked about as much in a positive way in a long time. I think he's the first White Sox prospect on the offensive side that when you talk about him, you're not talking about talent. Pantera was all talent. They were trying to sell Pantera like he was the next, Mike Trout, but it wasn't because of the numbers. It was because of the potential. This guy's getting talked about because of the numbers. And that's like, whoa, that's new to this era of White Sox baseball. So hopefully he keeps playing the way that he does. And if he's 130, that's going to come with a strikeout. That's what his job is. His job is to hit home runs, get on base, or K. That's the nature of the beast. But you're going to pay for somebody like that eventually, or trade for somebody like that eventually, give up all the prospects. With all due respect to everybody in the minor leagues, I don't see anybody coming and doing 30 and 100 in the next 2 years. That's in the minor league uniform right now. That means you're Miguel Cabrera. Gonzo, that means you're Miguel Cabrera. That means that you're an all-star. That means that you're Frank Thomas. A guy, again, Murakami's not a rookie that was playing AA, AAA ball. He is coming from Japan, okay? Japan's baseball is above that level. It's the closest thing, if not major league level. At this point, people need to be honest and say, is Japan just as good as MLB? That's a conversation that nobody wants to have, but is Japan's baseball just as good as MLB? Got Ohtani here. Murakami made it look easy. So I think it's a really big gamble, especially if he does it well, to just say, oh, our next prospect's going to come up and do 30 and 100. That's just, it doesn't happen that much in baseball. And if he does, then you got a guy that's going to start having a Hall of Fame career. So you don't develop that. Just those are like A-Rod type of conversations. So I hope that he's here just because I think that he's exciting to watch in a personal level. And he brings a lot of good things to the team. But I would let him play out the year and see where he's at, because I think his value is going to be, the better he plays, the value keeps going up.
So there's one thing, Nick, you said that I want to emphasize, and that is, again, the importance of starting that conversation now, because a month ago, I would have laughed if you said we're having a serious conversation about doing an extension. Part of that is, again, this is going to be my opinion, but at the moment, I think Ishbia is focused on the stadium project, because that's for them on the ownership side. That's going to bring the most investment. And that's, again, with the money he's going to be putting into this franchise, that's at the top of the list. That's what he's focusing on until Jerry's ready to say, okay, this is all yours now. And again, I don't know what the conversation is between Jerry and Ishbia of what they're going to do, setting up the finances going forward for, or like in the meantime, like how much is Jerry going to, pitch in before Justin fully takes it over and goes beyond the stadium project? How much is he going to start putting into the money into that roster? Because we saw his brother in Phoenix spend a lot of money, but again, his brother didn't deal with the stadium project. So this is going to be interesting to see. I know OJ brought up the money last week of saying, hey, don't toot your horn too quickly, Sox fans, about the next owner, because again, Jerry, as much as, I know OJ hates bringing this up, but Jerry did spend money. It wasn't efficiently used at all. Blame can go towards him on the person he put into place to aid him on the baseball side of things, on the money that should be used, on who that should be used for. But at the end of the day, this is a huge investment that Justin's coming in, and how that's going to be allocated, we will see. But I'm glad with what you bring to this conversation, because again, I think Getz should, he is not only the GM, he's the vice president. So he should definitely pull Jerry and Justin aside and say, hey, I wasn't expecting for us to be where we're at this very moment, but we should start beginning conversation of, hey, in a couple months, I need to know if I can get this guy extended by the end of the year, if we can get that money allocated right now. Because again, you have to be ahead of the ballgame. We talked about the assessment of your organization. So if you don't have the blessing to start that money towards the core, because that's not, we're going to draft Rock Chalowski in July, and with how this MLB is, you can see him getting a pre-arbitration early extension, and you just saw Connor Griffin, McGonigal get 150 million plus. So that's going to be two guys that are getting $100 million plus in the near future. And I'm saying in under a year, if things are going as anticipated. So again, if you don't get that blessing that you're going to be spending that big money plus a stadium project, Mooney's value at its highest point, you can start feeling, because I say regardless, Getz should feel those offers to see where the value is. And then if you don't get that blessing, go ahead and best offer, you get the standout talent. However, again, before the season started, I did say, regardless, I am trading Mooney. The one thing I didn't think about is this, and I said it last week, and I remain firm on it. If I know that I got that blessing, if I'm in the room and I know that Ishbia is going to spend that money soon, I'm not trading him. I'm fielding offers, sure, or I'm fielding, the value of the offer, but I'm going to extend him when I get that blessing to give him that money, for the sole purpose that I have that bat in this lineup right now, so that when Rock and Caleb Bonnemer get here, they have protection in that lineup for them to truly develop at the major league level with that bat and that lineup. That is extremely important. And I brought up last week, you saw the Cubs trade their best prospect in their system for 1 year of Kyle Tucker. And look at what that did to PCA. That organization gave an extension based off of that protection, that lineup, and seeing what he did in half a season. Because ever since that trade deadline, what has PCA done since then? It does not look good. However, the Cubs still gave him a contract extension based off of essentially that protection of that elite bat and that lineup. So again, that is why I would extend Murakami based off of where we're at and the trajectory of where we're going with the talent being brought in, being developed in-house. I would love to see a lineup that you have Bonnemer, Rock, and Murakami 2, 3, 4 in that lineup.
Other than you, Eloy Jimenez, Moncada. Okay, Gonzo. If I told you the World Series,
but those guys weren't shortstop.
Those top prospects, guys. They were the best players of the prospect. They killed the minor leagues. This is a mistake that they make. One guy is not even.
Neither of those guys were a versatile position.
The guy's not even on the White Sox yet. Okay, it's not even drafted by the Sox yet. You have 6 years of control on them. So the teams that are extending these young players, that's their philosophy. So if I told you that the White Sox win a World Series in the next 5 years, okay, that's what the White Sox fans want, without having to extend these guys. Like, your White Sox fans are thinking about problems that are coming in the future with guys in contracts and extensions. Like, we get a prospect or a player on either side of the ball, and you're thinking about, when are we going to move this player because we're not going to afford them later? Okay, let me tell you, if Bonderman or Cholowski is Frank Thomas, they will extend him. The problem is they got to prove that they're Frank Thomas and that they're that type of player for this franchise for them to be extended. So right now, Murakami, if he keeps on the pace that he's going, there's proof in the big leagues. And if he keeps going, he's going to deserve it more than those guys. They haven't had a big league at bat. Bonderman might come to Chicago and fall in love with Rush Street.
I mean, regardless of that, though, if you're giving Murakami a 7-year deal.
That's what I'm saying, though. So you got to take it by phases. Like, they need to figure out, okay, is this guy going to be – they can't be making decisions on, okay, well, I'm not going to extend Murakami because the next guy is going to be – the only reason Manny Machado and Bryce Harper are not on the Chicago White Sox is because they thought Moncada was Machado and they thought Eloy was Bryce Harper.
Yeah, but my philosophy is I'm already putting that timeline there. Murakami's extension of 7 years fits the development of Bonner and Chalowski, because both of them, Chalowski's going to be debuting next. If let's just say they play baseball next year, Chalowski's going to make his debut in 27. Bonner as well, because he's already going to be probably Double-A by. He's going to probably spend that second half of this year in Double-A. So he's going to be debuting similar to Brandon Montgomery. He's going to be the Brandon Montgomery of that wave next year. He's going to be debuting in 27.
Brandon Montgomery got brought up to the big leagues because they didn't think that he had nothing left in the minor leagues. And they said, sink or swim, son. And he swam. So I hope that he's not Brandon Montgomery. Because Brandon Montgomery was the last hope thrown out there. And it worked out.
Colson?
You mean Colson?
Colson.
I'm talking Brady.
Again, Brandon Montgomery, another one that's never played in the big leagues. I think that you make the move for Murakami, okay, if you're going to extend him, because eventually, regardless of what this team looks like, if it's with all the minor leaguers, if it's with free agents, you need to have somebody in the lineup that if he keeps up this production, brings this production to the lineup. You cannot be a playoff team and have one guy hit less than 30 home runs or drive 100 runs. That's why Andrew Vaughn is no longer with the White Sox or Gavin Sheets, because they thought those guys were going to be Moncada, Eloy, 130, and you can look up all the stats, look up all the World Series winning teams, all the playoff teams. You need guys that produce at that level. And for the Cubs part, they need somebody to come and protect them if that's the case. But I think regardless of what the future looks like, you need somebody with Murakami's numbers, regardless if it's Murakami or not, in this lineup. So you already got a player that eventually can become a guy that you don't have to develop to being that guy. Hopefully they have a problem where they have 5 guys that have, that are 30 and 100. And you're like, wow, we have so many guys. So I think that from a structure standpoint, like, for example, looking at the numbers right now, because Murakami, you're not going to have control over, when his contract's up, you got to get on free agent. All those guys that are in the minor leagues, you got 6 years. You got 6 years to move them year 3, move them year 4, whatever you want. So I think that the Murakami conversation is one that they have to focus on big time, because it's like, and by the way, if you get a new stadium, you need players to bring people to the stands. And Murakami, White Sox fans love home runs. And even if they're 500 and trying to compete and you're like struggling to get into a playoff, if Murakami is in the lineup just because of the way that he is built, I think that the one thing you need to focus on is try to pray every day that Murakami is a Jose Ramirez type guy and gives you a team-friendly deal. And again, it happens.
Yeah.
Ozzie Guillen stayed here for a long time with the White Sox. Why? Because he loved Chicago and loved the White Sox. They never went to free agent. It wasn't even a question. Those are the relationships. That's what they need to build with players like that. Frank stayed here for a long time because he loved it. Didn't taste free agency to post, his big era moments. So it's about money, but it's about having the person be here and be comfortable and be with the team. This is why the Mark Burley situation when he left the White Sox was so hard, because it was a guy that wanted to be here, a guy that you knew that wanted to be in Chicago and was going to work out a contract and just wanted to get paid what he was worth, but decided to go from somebody that you didn't even know how he would fit in a White Sox uniform. So instead of thinking about, okay, we're going to bring a free agent down the line that you don't even know if it's going to work with Will Venable, this is what Will's building. If the money's there, by the way, the money's not Jerry's money that he's taking out from his personal account. This is a White Sox budget. So White Sox fans want the chances for Murakami to keep going up on him being signed. Let's pack the stadium, because it's a budget. It's a team's budget. And obviously, and the good thing is that you already have the owner. So Ishbia is just buying into that. The money that he's putting into the buying of the team, he inherits that budget. And the White Sox have never signed somebody for an extension of that point. So that's why I think that even if you let him finish out this season, and in the offseason you see worth the extension or worth the trade. Because the better that he plays, the higher that his value is going to go up. That's just the reality of it. So I think that I would like him to have at least a full season before any of those decisions are made. And then once you're there, then you make the decision. And I hope that he stays here and that he's somebody that developed, but you give him a full year. And I'm more hopeful of Murakami just because of where he's at with his career base. Meaning Murakami in the age that he has, the years that he has playing baseball, if he does it 1 year in the big leagues, I wouldn't think that it's a fluke. It's like, okay, this guy's going to repeat again a season similar to this.
Yeah, I just think that protection is huge for that first year in the debut season.
Oh, yeah.
And especially early on in that career. Again, you kind of see you saw the Orioles essentially do it this offseason. They brought in Pete Alonso again to give protection in that lineup for guys like Gunnar Henderson and some of those position players in that lineup. So,
yeah, the Boston Red Sox have Wilson Contreras protecting these guys, and they wonder why they're losing.
Wonder why they scored 10 fucking runs because they got Wilson Contreras.
I'm just saying, when you look again, big name, this lineup construction is so important. And when you're having prospects of guys that are going to be there and where the guys hit in the lineup, when Ozzie came in 2004, the Sox were projecting for Joe Creedy and Aaron Rowan to be 3, 4, or 5. You don't like those guys that much hitting 3, 4, 5. You like them at 6, 7, 8. So lineup, you need those dudes. You need guys that are going to fill in. And hopefully you get it with your own core. And again, out of those 3 guys that you mentioned, if one guy makes it, that's a win. 2 guys make it, that's a huge win. If all 3 make it, Chris Getz might get a statue, at some point because they're in really, really good shape. But the Murakami conversation, and the Japan market is so lucrative. Okay. Because if they get this guy for the long term, I'm sure there's a lot of things that the Sox can do from a marketing standpoint. And I think, and Nick, you've been a Sox fan for a long time, just to get your perspective, I think fans really like him.
Yeah.
I think fans are, other than his numbers, I think fans really, really enjoy him.
Well, he says the right things, or at least, it's interpreted to us as it's the right things. And he's just endearing himself to fans immediately. And you hear about, like a sushi dinner last Thursday during the off day, he hosted a sushi dinner with teammates, and I'm loving all the different handshakes and just the way that he has, he was the new kid on the block, literally and figuratively. Like a lot of these guys had already kind of built relationships last year, and he came in and he has been welcomed, and winning helps, and the way he's producing helps. I think, and this is just me as a Sox fan, I guess, and I could probably speak for a lot of other Sox fans, I want to see the organization invest in proven talent, instead of maybe hopes and possibilities and this person could be this, and that's great. You have to look that way. But if he is a 3,100 guy, if that's the year he puts up, then, and it's only going to get more difficult. Every home run he hits, that conversation is going to be a little bit more difficult, unless he is that Jose Ramirez, unless he just says, you know what, screw it. I love Chicago. You guys brought me in. I love this atmosphere. I want to see what we've got something here. I want to see this through the next 4 to 5 years. But I want to see them invest in proven talent and create that pillar, somebody that's going to be around. And to Gonzo's point, you absolutely have to have that protection for those younger guys. I don't want some of those younger guys like Rock to come in with nowhere to hide, because he's got to be the person. He's got to be the man, because there's no one else around that's going to do it. That's double pressure, so have Murakami there as a place where he can hide a little bit. So yeah, I'm just happy to watch this guy play. He seems to enjoy the moment, and I hope this moment continues to a whole season.
And that, folks, wraps up our White Sox topics for this week. We are now sliding over into the schedule, and OJ, you brought up one of my favorite pitchers, at least, that was drafted recently by the White Sox, and Noah Schultz. He's going tomorrow in the rubber match. I don't know how this game's going to go today, how it's going to end up as, but if Angels tie it up, the rubber match matchup's going to be Urena versus Schultz. I feel like regardless, I feel like the White Sox do end up taking this series with tomorrow's, I'm hoping, victory. However, Friday or this weekend, Friday through Sunday, the White Sox come back home and go up against Seattle. Looks like the probabilities are Friday's matchup, Burke versus Hancock. Hancock, I know, really impressive season. Guy that is probably, if I remember right, he was their 5 pitcher going into the season, but he's likely their best pitcher as of a month into the season. Last start going 7 strong, striking out 14. Crazy outing by him. Game 2 is going to be Castillo versus K. I was really hoping with that matchup with Castillo that it would be anyone but K. However, that it just is what it is. Game 3 is looking like Davis Martin versus Gilbert. Across the board, pitching's going to be there. We got to see if we're going to win that series. We have to see exactly who we can steal some victories off this pitching staff that we're going up against. Jay, before I go into the beginning series of next week's show, what's your thoughts with Seattle at this current moment? Because again, this is a team that started off slow, is slowly getting back to 500. What is your thoughts, pitching, hitting, all of the above? I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, it's a team full of sleeping giants, Gonzo. We got Julio, Josh Naylor, Big Dumper Kyle Raleigh, all performing underneath what they usually bring to the table. So it's an opportunity for the White Sox to take advantage. The Mariners as a whole, they haven't been too good. Even Andres Munoz, who's one of the best closers in the sport, have had turbulence throughout the season. So I'm going to bring this graphic back up because it's very important to me. And I asked you, Nick, earlier, your favorite metric, and you told me, run differential for a club. My favorite stat in the sport of baseball is WHIP, because WHIP tells me a story from a reliever to a starter. If you're an opener, it tells me exactly what you're giving up on a day-to-day basis. Look at all of these White Sox pitchers who are hovering around a 1 solid WHIP. Do you know what that means? That's a lot of outs. And I feel like the Seattle Mariners might be the newest victim of the White Sox super rotation. I don't really predict a lot of sweeps on this show, but I feel like even though the Mariners have more talent than us, they're in the wrong place at the very wrong time at the rate this weekend. You shouldn't be afraid of Anthony K pitching, because he's going up against Luis Castillo, who is absolutely giving up batting practice to everybody and their mama. So you might see a Murakami bat flip. You might see Colson Montgomery hit for the cycle. So don't be afraid, little Gonzo. It'll be okay. We can kick a dog when it's down this weekend. We got an opportunity.
What's your thoughts, OJ?
You know what? I think that you said Wednesday. Noah's going up against the same guy he went up last time, right?
Yeah. Or he's got Urena. Yeah. So the White Sox are playing really good baseball. I'm not a huge Mariners guy. I think that the only guy that worries me in that lineup is Josh Naylor, because he becomes Babe Ruth when he comes into playing against the White Sox. But I think that the team can go, depending on what happens tonight. I see them being able to go 3-2 and stealing 2 from the Mariners, depending on, again, with K is obviously the Castillo's biggest name, but the White Sox offense, again, that run differential, it's going to be based on how the White Sox react to the pitching. The Sox pitch the way they do, you mean staying average, the hitting can get them over. But I got them at 3-2 for the week, like for those games, including without including tonight's game.
Eric Fetty just gave up a untying home run to Zach Neto.
Just win the series. I think that they got a chance to win the series. The Mariners, again, they're playing at home, so I think that gives them an advantage, obviously, always. But 3-2. And I think Noah Schultz, regardless if the team wins or loses, he is going to shove.
Yeah, I think Noah shoves. I'm going to predict the opposite. I think we win game 2 of that series, but we lose 1 and 3. I see Seattle taking 2 of 3. That's how I think we win the Angels series, and again we split with the 2 series. Seattle takes that second one. Nick, where's your thoughts on this upcoming weekend?
Yeah, Hawk used to say it's not, who you play, it's when you play them. And I think to Jay's point, we're catching Seattle at a pretty good time. I feel like they're going to be a little bit better than this. I'm surprised at where they're at right now, but they're not the only club that's spinning their tires a little bit trying to figure out where they are. I'm hoping that fans show up, after what this team, if they win this series, which I think they will win the series in Anaheim, I think Schultz is going to continue to get stronger. I hope fans show up, and that place is thunderous, and they show up for a team that very well could jump over 500 if they're not there already. And I think 2 or 3 is definitely on the table against Seattle. And then you're starting off, getting into next week, which I'm sure you guys will talk about when, it's a nice long homestand. You got some division stuff, and then you got an inner city thing going on. So I hope the fans, again, pack that place this weekend. And again, we're catching Seattle at the right time.
So it is looking like we're probably going to go live next Wednesday, but the opening series, Sox stay at home to begin next week versus the Kansas City Royals, who are in similar position as Seattle. They start off slow, but now they're heating up and getting close to 500. Game 1, at least, is looking like Cole Reagans versus Fetty. Should be a good matchup. We'll get into the rest of that series next show. But time it is right now for Pick to Click. Slavko won Pick to Click last week with Murakami, who was on the board for him. Now Murakami's off the board, so Slavko is going with Colson Montgomery.
I hate him, bro. I swear to God on my life.
With Colson Montgomery off the board, I'm going to pick Sam Antonacci for my Pick to Click this week. Next up will be, I got to look at the standings here. You guys both haven't won Pick to Click yet this season. So
you didn't have to say that out loud. You could have just went through.
I'm never gonna win. Whoever gets Murakami, gotta take Murakami out of the game. I'm gonna go with Miguel Vargas.
Okay. I like that.
Things heating up in May.
That's a good pick, OJ. Jay. And Jay, we
don't laugh. Don't laugh. All right.
Luis Angel.
I'm taking the easy way out. This guy's probably going to be the best offensive player for the next 7 days.
You picked Derek Hill last week, so
yeah. And I tried to go use the sample size, and my man didn't even play. So I'm gonna pick somebody that has a little bit more at bats. Give me Benintendi.
By the way, for the fans of the show, this is not set up. These are really his picks.
Yeah, no, I have faith in Derek Hill.
These are really his picks.
Yeah, give me Benintendi, Gonzo.
Oh my God! By the way, I hope the hope that you have. I wish somebody hoped like that for me in my life.
When I win with Benintendi, I want a statue.
Nick, is there anyone that that you think is going to have a really great week, or was there anyone not picked that you think can top the guys that were selected?
I don't know. I was going to take Benintendi. There's not a lot of guys. I like Mydroth. I know that there's some people down on Mydroth, but I like Mydroth, and I'll take it. You're not going to get the power from him, but he seems to be on base more often than not, and I'll take Mydroth.
Sandlot. I like it.
And you know what, Nick? I'm glad you talked about my draft. I think he's going to remain on the club regardless, this year, next year, etc. But there's a lot of talk of Jacob Gonzalez, and he very well can be the next one called up if it's not Hagen Smith. But where's he going to fit in the picture for this year with getting at bats with this roster when Antonacci's already going to left field? So are we dropping Acuna and we're going to put someone in? Are we going to slide someone over to center? And this is going to be one hell of a roster juggle with Venable. So I'm interested to see what
Will's ready for the challenge.
Yeah. That's a good challenge to have.
Exactly. Yes.
With everything all said, and again, but this is a crazy infield because I wasn't even thinking of Gonzalez at all in this infield picture. But that's really great for Jacob Gonzalez, right? Because he's a first-round pick. You got to give him a shot, and I'm glad at least to this point that he's made it to get the debut with how things started. Nick, we are at the end of the show. Again, with our listeners, let us know where we can find you in social media, and do you have anything coming up content-wise?
Yeah, we do our weekly podcast on Sunday nights. Good Guys Talk Back. We do it live on our YouTube channel, 9 p.m. Sunday nights. Audio available everywhere. This is season 8, which is kind of crazy. And it's been a blast, a labor of love, as you guys know, doing Sox content lately. It's just for the love of it. I get to record with a guy that I've known, my best friend from college. We met in college and basically bonded over the White Sox. And, we get to do this weekly. It's a great excuse to see him. Life gets so busy, and, we get together, talk about the Sox, and it's been fun, lately. And I love when people jump in the comments, and it adds to that. So that's Sunday nights. I'm on X at Nick_GGTB, usually pretty active, especially when there's White Sox stuff going on. But thank you guys so much. This was awesome to talk Sox with you guys.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And by the way, your name, probably one of the better names in White Sox Twitter world with your show. I love that.
Oh,
90s.
Thank you.
90s, Jay.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us. We got to get you on hopefully later in the season, and we wish you all the best with your not only content creation, but your next road trips that you go on to and follow this team. Nick, we wish you the best, and best wishes, because again, this is going to be one hell of a ride, and I'm glad that you made it 8 seasons, because that's longer than the 20 plus podcasts that are out there. I would say that's got to be one of the longer ones, might be the longest one out there.
Yeah, it's we'll be doing episode 341, which is crazy. I mean, it's just sometimes there's been some ups and downs, more downs than ups, but I feel like we're trending in the right direction. So thank you guys.
Especially with a 100 game losing season. That
was rough.
Well, thanks again, Nick. Appreciate you. You can find him, everyone, at Nick_GGTB and his podcast of Good Guys Talk Back podcast on all social media platforms. So thank you again, Nick. We appreciate you. Guys, we are at shout outs now. Jay, take it away.
First of all, I got to give a shout out to Asia, because she literally brought the cake slice, the $4 cake slice sale back May 16th. Now, let me tell you something. I could get these slices for free, and I still have to Zeller $20 fucking
good
for cake. It's that fucking good, OJ. So shout out to Asia. She's getting the goodies back on our plates and on our tables. It goes good with coffee too. And I got a second shout out because I know it looks like I was by myself, but my cat has joined me and really got on my fucking nerves all day. So shout out to you. You're gonna bite me?
Is his name Yankee? Is his name Yankee?
No,
Please
her
let
name's Talisa, and she got Michael Bush on her fantasy team. So there, get away from me. No,
I'm glad
but
that she doesn't have a rider dragon name. I'm glad that she has a normal name.
No, yes. My niece named her.
Okay, good.
So,
Smart kid.
In all seriousness, got to give Nick a shout out from Good Guys Talk Back. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I found their podcast like on Apple Podcasts. I just search White Sox, and I listened to him and Pat while I'm playing Red Dead Redemption. Like literally, I'll turn the volume down on the TV and I'll just listen to Pat and Nick talk about the White Sox. Took me back to stories about Ray Durham, Frank Thomas, Dan Pascal. Like, it's a good listen. Like, the audio is just great as far as like the acoustics of those two guys chopping it up about the Sox. So shout out to Nick for coming on. I was fanned out. Like, Gonzo, you didn't even let me get in my bread and butter, but there'll be a second time. So yeah, just shout out to Nick for being on, and shout out to the White Sox too, because I mean, I thought they were going to be 20 games under 500 by this point in the season, and now look at us talking about winning somebody's division and somebody's wild card or something or another. So I'm happy.
Wrong division. Wrong Sox that you were thinking about.
No. You're gonna stop doing this to me. You're gonna stop doing this.
There's no Alex Cora there. It's even actually one of my shout outs is gonna be number one to the White Sox. You need to get Gabriela to throw out the first pitch. I just saw that she did it for the Cubs. Gabriela Yaques, I always mess up her last name. The basketball player for the city. I'm in love with her. She's a great baller. But the Cubs had her to throw out the first pitch, so now they're going to claim her. We got to get her to the White Sox Stadium, have her throw out the first pitch there. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the Detroit Tigers are Bush League. They already showed their first Bushness this season. They just drilled somebody after the Red Sox.
Yeah, Trevor Story.
Yeah, so they've always been Bush. Now they're extra Bush. They take you deep twice, and that's a series I want. I really want to play the Tigers for all the smack they've been talking, and this is their division and whatnot, even though it's the Guardians. By the way, Jay, for them, it's easy for me. My two teams that I like are on the same division. So it's a little bit harder so yes, I watch a lot of Tigers dislike because I watch them obviously. But yeah, so I was very surprised about that. Obviously there was an ejection, but don't drill somebody when they take you deep, strike them out. Drill guys for other reasons, not because they took you deep. And I think that shout out to Will Venable, man. And right now, when teams take the L's, managers take the beating, and the coaching staff. And I don't think anybody predicted that this team was going to be here. And when you look at the run differential, that to me, it says good managing and good coaching, meaning that they're trying to get the wins where they're at. Because again, his lineup's very different every day, and he doesn't have an easy job, obviously winning while rebuilding. But I think that I'm seeing improvement like from last year, and every day it gets a little bit better. So I got to give a shout out to Will and then the staff. They're doing a really good job right now, and I hope that they keep it up. And then the last one is to Gonzo. He wasn't wrong about Noah Schultz. Gonzo, there's your receipts.
Wow.
You got to give talent where talent's due, man. The guy's, if he keeps developing the way that he is right now, the way that he threw the ball the last game, I'm looking forward to pitching, seeing him. He's on the list now of I'm not going to miss a start because I want to see that progression, because I think that he does have that big league stuff, like, a little quicker than I thought that it would take him to get. So that's it. Thanks.
Very well, OJ. I'm my shout outs. I'm gonna start off with Nick, because anyone that can last he was with us for 100 minutes. He listened to Jay for 100 minutes. So anyone
I didn't even say nothing.
Anyone that can last this podcast with Jay for 100 minutes deserves to come on at least 4 times, at least. So that being said, huge shout out to our guy Nick from the Good Guys Talk Back podcast. Don't look at me like that, Jay. I gotta give a shout out to our man. Great stuff tonight. That was actually, I love that conversation, and I can't wait to listen back, cut it up a bit, send it out there because a lot of good topics that we covered. That again, OJ, I sent you the tweet of the Chicago Pope and his inside knowledge that he's putting out there. And again, I looked up when I opened up Twitter when the show started, just to like retweet our show live. I saw that he actually at me a couple times in some responses, so I need to go back and put him on blast again with his insider knowledge.
I think that I love that we call out tweets, the good ones, the bad ones, because again, I think there's a lot of really good tweets, especially. I love the combination of old school and new school. So Nick, to me, is more old school. He talks a lot about the 90s and he sees the game a little bit different. But even like when we're talking about analytics, the guys that are sharing analytical stuff, I love those tweets because I'm learning. It's not, I'm not looking up FIB to look comparisons sometimes. So when you're looking at the guys that are more analytical, I really enjoy that. But those are the tweets that get me like my blood boiling, where you're just putting just crazy stuff, nonsense out there.
Yeah.
Okay. Like you're just stirring the pot. And again, you got to take them with a grain of salt and being like how the seriousness of it is. But that's just the world of Twitter. And by the way, thank God you guys don't understand Spanish, because the stuff that, some of the Latino content guys put out there is like even worse. Like for Jay, they put that there was this guy that put that the next Red Sox manager was going to be Albert Pujols and the general manager was going to be Nelson Cruz. And it had like 700 likes and I'm like, what the I'm like, and again, he had an insider information. It's like, so again, you got to take those with a grain of salt. And again, the better the Sox play and the more crazy stories we're going to hear. The good thing is that we haven't heard any crazy stories like clubhouse stuff. I think that everything we've heard about is really positive. Berkey and Sean and Davis, like from what they were sharing, they seem to be very happy, like with the clubhouse atmosphere, which wasn't the case a couple years ago. Just from like conversations that you would hear players talk about, kind of like the rumors. But so a lot of really good positive things. So hopefully that, they have a good series this week and we jump over the 500 mark.
Yeah. So everyone listening, please tune in next week. Cause again, we brought up this tweet, but depending on how these replies go, we might bring back Stone Pony tweets and,
Stone Pony tweets. As long as we don't bring back anything Grifol grounds, we're good.
You're gonna see
that segment's retired.
You're gonna see Will's way for sure, but we haven't done Stone Pony tweets in a minute, so we might have to.
It's just some of the stuff's really funny. Again, some of the stuff is like funny. Some of the stuff is really insightful, and I'll give it a retweet like when the information is good.
Exactly. We give criticism whether it's good or bad, and we say it in the opener. We're bringing the receipts. So,
by the way, I just called you out, Noah Schultz. Guys, Gonzo said Noah Schultz was going to be good when Noah Schultz was like in 5th grade. That's how long he's been scouting him.
So, not only am I shouting out Nick, I hate you. I'm going to shout out our guy Justin. Thank you for always being in the chat with us, and we always hope we hope that your recovery is going well, Justin. Again, Justin's gone through some major surgeries, so everyone send him some positivity his way. Ralph, thank you, buddy. We appreciate your chat or you were actually at Facebook. We love that. See our Facebook comments. Who else we got on YouTube? Etikin. Hey, this is your way, OJ. So
I'll take it. Again, if the Guardians lose, I obviously want the Sox to be in the division. Again, I adopted them, but screw them now. If it's against the Sox.
And the last one, not least, are one of our favorite Venezuelans. Juan Diego's in the chat. Juan, I'm sorry you lost last week in fantasy. Hope you bounce back. He puts Suzuki is free agent and Japanese already live in Chicago. That's a possibility the Cubs don't keep him. Again, we appreciate everybody in the chat live with us and ones that comment after the fact. Thank you for tuning in. last but not least, I have to give my last shout out to not only my fiance Soraya, who again when it comes to the home buying process and us being our first time, the amount of stress that we endured, and we were able with our teamwork and communication to get through it and actually have a rather enjoyable home buying process. Again, there was some parts of there that were very frustrating and stressful, but I really thought, looking back at it, it showed a lot of great communication and strength that we had in our teamwork going through it. And again, with our marriage a couple months away from the altar, I just absolutely love that. Again, I didn't think that the home buying process would come at the same time of the wedding planning, but handling everything all together, yeah, it was. That's how you raise her up.
You get married and you get a home. Now, when hopefully your house stays intact. But no, welcome to responsibilities, Gonzo.
Responsibilities are huge. Shout out to our lender, our mortgage team. They were awesome to work with. Shout out to A&N Mortgage Services in Chicago. And out of the 3 people that we were, negotiating with, they stood out and they did their part and made that process smooth. And shout out to them. Again, I'm in Michigan, so if I'm shouting out mortgage services in Chicago, that should stand out to you because they're 3 hours away from me, and I would recommend them to anybody. And also, my third part caveat to this is our developers from the Allen Homes developing in here in the Howell area. Shout out to them. Same insight that I'm giving you on our mortgage lender. They did everything in their power to really build the home of our dreams, a new build. Got it at I know the market out there is really competitive, but again, I got it at a really good deal, and it was actually appraised at a higher value. So I'm and when I mean higher value, I'm talking $30,000. So Gonzo is in a really good mood right now.
Yes, he is, especially after Noah's gonna shove. We not would be able to control Jay. We might have to put Gonzo.
He's on a generational heater. I don't know what the end of the season is gonna look like, OJ.
Yeah, this is wild. This is a lot. Gonzo, you imagine if the White Sox make the playoffs the same year and the prospects hit. Are you ready for that much excitement? Like prospects that you called up start hitting.
He's gonna need stents in his heart.
Yeah, you're gonna be like, I'm kind of worried that you might not be able to help, sustain. Like imagine like a Murakami extension. Prospects get called up in the timeline that he wants. They start doing well. Marriage, he's got the home. This might be wild. September might be hard. I don't even know. Kind of worried now.
And that's crazy because we got your dad's ceremony in August. It's gonna go. It can very well go.
Everyone's talking about this. One of the reasons is the White Sox, the bad juju. Once they announced the number being retired, it was like when the Cubs walked the goat. The goat was walked out of the building. The good juju's back.
Do we actually have
actually good to hear?
It is Ochivo. That's why we had the Ochivo thing.
No. I'm saying the record since the home opener, it's over 500.
It is. So I think in general, I think that I think it was like good things bring up more good things, and so if I was a betting guy, I think that the White Sox good wave is going to keep happening. So,
well, OJ, I'm only going to believe that the GOAT, the El Chivo is gone.
Yeah, he's left the building.
If the postseason starts this year ahead of schedule, I believe El Chivo is gone.
I believe El Chivo is gone if they go above 500 and make a run and they're playing competitive baseball.
I need two more runs from the White Sox. We're down 4-2 right now.
I'm putting money on the White Sox.
We're down 4-2. We got Noah Schultz hitting the mound tomorrow. For some reason, OJ doubts my boy Caleb Bonnemer right now in the system.
I'm not doubting him. I'm just want to wait when he gets up here.
Oh shit!
You know,
Just bring him up.
I can't even claim Caleb. I'm gonna claim my boy Fauski though. That's down there.
Very
Tommy's
promising.
developed. Tommy's developed high school profile that we got in the system right now. Boys, hell of an episode. Again, Noah Schultz on the bump tomorrow. Let's go win another series. Go White Sox. And thank you for tuning in and watching the Blackout.